Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depends upon where you are in the world. My name is Bill Gustin, the oldest man in the room with the Miami-Dade Fire Rescue Department in Miami, Florida. And I'm going to be the moderator for this month's Hangout. And we have an esteemed group of folks here participating. Just a very short introduction, except for you, Jeremy, because you're our special guest today. So you can expound on your background. So and you got your old man there with you. So we'll let you guys go ahead and make the introductions.
I'm Jeremy's grandfather,
Okay.
and very proud of him. So, Jeremy, introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jeremy Sanders. I'm not going to take a lot of time because I feel like I do not belong in this group. I'm lucky enough to be sitting in with it. So
Trust me, you're the only one who belongs in this group.
I'm 19-year firefighter out of a Central Oklahoma department. I am at the rank captain right now, run the Crew First Culture social media pages and podcast, and super passionate about building a better service from the ground up, one leader at a time, and just excited to be here. So thank you very much.
Jeremy, you've got some great firefighters that you have worked with or are working with right now, namely Justin Mann.
Yes,
He's
sir.
on your department, correct?
Yes, sir. He's my driver. Yep.
And I had the distinct pleasure, along with Captain Mike Dugan, of teaching at the Tulsa Fire Academy. And Justin was one of the students, but it became apparent very quickly he should have been the teacher and not the student. And another one I want to give a shout out to, and I think Clark could allude to this, is Brian Brush. Clark, could you go ahead and just introduce yourself and then explain a little bit about Brian's web page?
Yeah, this is Clark Lamping. I'm from Clark County, Nevada. It's actually the Las Vegas area. I also do not belong in this group of esteemed professionals. So you're in good company, Justin. Brian Brush, he is a training chief in Oklahoma, and he has a website called Firefighter Rescue Survey. And what Chief Brush is doing is compiling all kinds of information about where we are finding people, how we are finding people, what's their survivability rates. And so if you anyone in the country, if you have a grab in your agency, lives or dies, go to his website, Firefighter Survey, Firefighter Rescue Survey, and fill out the information. And he's going to compile a comprehensive list of statistically where our best chances are of finding individuals, where we should start our searches during what part of the day. He's an excellent individual. He's a true gentleman. He is taught, and he came out to Clark County and taught with us. Very, very personal, and he is in it for the right reasons. He loves the job and he loves his community. So again, Firefighter Rescue Survey, Chief Brian Brush.
And full disclosure, just give you a little teaser. Brian is organizing we'll be doing an online, probably multi-hour conversation about what he's doing. He's putting together a group of folks that'll be on that. Champ is working with him on it, Mike Champo. And Brian will be also doing some stuff at FDIC about the survey and some of the preliminary findings that he has. So thank you for that. And Brian, stand by. And as soon as Brian has his game plan lined up, we'll be announcing that to everybody. It'll be the online thing will be prior to FDIC, kind of front end load, and then at FDIC, and then following up after that. So good to have everybody on board.
Very good. By the way, who are you? You didn't really introduce yourself.
Bobby Halton.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Firehouse Magazine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Got it. Okay. All right. Hey.
Great publication, but not mine. It's
all right. Hey, Captain Mike. It's good to see you, bro.
Hi, my name's Mike. I was standing on the corner and some guy came hold up in a van and said, "Are you looking to do
Hi, Mike.
work?
Oh, wrong meeting.
Looking to do a day's work? We need you on a videotape." So here I am.
Thank you, Mike. And Daryl, out in your garage, he's in his timeout corner. I don't know what you
Yeah.
did to make your wife so mad, but you are definitely, as we would say in Miami, you are in the casa de perro, which would be the doghouse.
I'm in the doghouse. You know, I'm glad this whole COVID thing's starting to wind down, but the reality is both my girls are homeschooling in their rooms. My wife's working out of our room, and we're fortunate enough to be going through a kitchen remodel. So I'm in the garage, which is a gym because of COVID. So anyway, yeah, my name's Daryl Liggins. I'm with the Oakland Fire Department. And I guess we're going to be talking about RV fires today, which we have a unfortunate, a lot of experience with in recent years due to a tremendous amount of homeless, I guess you could say, although the RV is their home. And early in my career, I don't really remember having RV fires. It seemed like a rare thing, but now it is, without any exaggeration, a daily event in our city. So see what we talk about here.
I want to give a shout out to some of our friends at Key Hose. That's keyhose.com. Mark Lighthill and Dave Hibben. Mark was a chief in Brevard County up near the Kennedy Space Center for years. Dave Hibben, glutton for punishment, the DC District of Columbia Fire Department Engine 10. And these guys go way beyond selling a product. They stand behind the product and they advise you regardless of what hose you're working with. They are consummate professionals when it comes to hose and flow testings and the capabilities of hose. So I wanted to give a shout out to them. A little bit of housekeeping, and I welcome this. If you'll remember, last month we were talking about the lightweight single inlet, for lack of a better term, a portable master stream device. So I received, how's my audio? We're doing good?
Much better. Yeah, good.
Okay. This is from Jeff Cole. He's a retired chief. And again, thank you, Jeff, for taking the time to enlighten us on this, because you're spot on, brother. Captain Gustin, I was watching the webcast on single inlet master streams, and I have some comments or questions regarding them. First off, we had used a 3-inlet deluge gun when I first joined his department in 1981. It was permanently mounted on a Jeep. We have a 2.5-mile boardwalk on the South Jersey shore, and this configuration worked well for us. As time progressed, we had a 2-inlet mounted portable deluge guns for each engine. I did not see mention of this type of device, and we should have. Though we had invested in the single inlet devices and found some clever ways to mount them, I have to question replacing larger flow, that would be 600 to 800 GPM or greater, with lower flow devices despite their portability. Considering the greater heat production rates, faster spreading fires, modern construction materials, and methods, if we are moving towards higher flows for faster knockdowns, is this single inlet really advisable? I can also think of mill-type construction prevalent in many areas where such lower flows seem to be counterproductive. The 2-inlet devices carried on the back step, for instance, pre-connected with one line of 3-inch or 2.5 to a static bed, can be quickly stretched and put into service just as quickly, with the second line connected after. My comments or questions may seem anti-single inlet master stream, but I do recognize their place. But I do not feel they are a wise replacement for larger flow guns. To quote a great philosopher and wise old sage, Mike Dugan, you don't have to be wrong for somebody to be right. This man is spot on. There are times that the single inlet device is not going to work. Now, can I mention something about, because we have the same thing with the Atlantic coast here. Getting around to the windward side, which is always going to be the beach side, is impossible with a regular conventional apparatus. You can't take them out on the beach. However, a four-wheel drive vehicle, an ATV that could lay its own supply line and operate with a master stream on the windward side, knowing that we can get up to as high as the 15th floor with a deck gun, is a potent weapon. And I thank you, Chief Jeff, for opining, and you're spot on. And I welcome discussion like this. So the topic of conversation is going to be the trailer fire. And unfortunately, the motivation for this was, the idea was from Captain Mike, because last month they had just had I believe it was 2 line of duty deaths in Waynoka, Oklahoma. Is that right, Captain Mike? You're muted. There you go.
Yes, it is, Bill.
And then I understand that just recently there were 6 civilian fatalities in a mobile home fire in Woodward, Oklahoma. And I'm not bashing the mobile home or the modular home industry, nothing like that. There are wonderful communities. When my dad retired from the Chicago Fire Department, he lived for 23 years in a double wide in Florida. And it was a wonderful home. So it's not that. But it is indisputable that people that are disadvantaged, that are immigrants that are disadvantaged, people that are substance abusers tend to congregate in either mobile home or RVs. And I think that a perfect example of this is what's going on in Oakland, California, as well as other cities. Peter, could you show that first video? And you don't have to show the whole thing. It's just the LP tank venting on that RV on the expressway.
Bill, stand by. Yep.
Okay.
I'm gonna share it. Let me just find.
All right, brother. Okay.
Hang on a minute.
All right. No problem.
You seeing this?
Yep.
Yep. There we go, brother. Excellent. Okay, guys. A big problem with these is the LP tanks are covered up, so you can't cool them. And they may be a little too close. That isn't the purpose of me showing the video. The purpose is just to get our appetites wet for what we're talking about today. When you talk about a rate of heat release and petrochemical-based synthetic materials and fuels, including LP, an RV is just pound for pound is quite a fuel package. You wait a second here. This relief valve is just about going to pop off here. There you go. There's one. And it's going to do it again here shortly. There you go. Okay, I think we've seen that's good. That's good, Peter. Thank you, sir. Daryl, can you tell us about the situation there, not only in Oakland, but in other cities around the country with the RVs?
Yeah. Well, I'll start off with one of the worst injuries we've had in our department that didn't lead to a fatality, but just very serious injuries, was a result of an RV fire. It was probably about 10 years ago. A firefighter stretching a line to an RV when a cylinder, it was an O2 cylinder, exploded. He was knocked to the ground. It put a piece of sheet metal right through his face. It knocked out all his teeth, broke his jaw. He had very severe bleeding. And the force was so great, a piece of sheet metal got embedded into a chain link fence nearby. So that really kind of set the tone for how we were going to, move forward with with some of these fires. At the time, we used to send a single engine company to these types of fires. Now it's always a box assignment, and using the reach of the stream as much as you can. I mean, a deck gun is not out of question to try and keep people protected. The other thing we have to do is, control traffic. Most of our RV fires are RVs parked along a stretch of roadway because somebody's homeless, or in a parking lot. We're not really dealing with the mobile homes or modular homes. And I don't even know where they're getting them. There's so many RVs. I don't know if they're getting them for free. Most of them are inoperable. I don't know where, they're towing them to different places. And because they're normally occupied by, homeless people, there's a tremendous amount of stuff in and outside of these mobile homes. So you were talking about these propane cylinders. People have to remember there's always a stove in these RVs, and those stoves are powered. Maybe sometimes they're powered by electricity, but they're usually powered by propane because the homeless are not near a place they're getting electricity. So we want a member of the engine or our truck company to shut the valve off if possible, because if we don't do that, once that hose burns through that goes from the propane tank to the oven, it's just accelerating fire. We just have a rubber hose whipping around, blowing propane, and it's a very, very intense fire. So sometimes those are in the form of portable propane tanks, and sometimes they're permanently mounted in the RV where you have to lift up a hatch to shut that valve off. But most of these are not going to be a survivable space in the during a fire. We're giving them the best chance we can, but we have to be aggressive, but look after our safety with using the reach of the stream. My company was on two simultaneously burning RV fires yesterday. I had just got off. They sent me pictures. Then they used the single inlet RAM monitor to get control of these two RVs. I was happy to see that they were able to do that. But most of the time, we're going to be using a hand line of some sort and just trying to keep our distance. We can't approach these like it's a car fire. They can still roll away. We still have tires popping, propane, O2, and all these other hazards. The other common, or I don't know if it's unique, but we have a little bit of an older town, not as old as the East Coast, obviously. But when these are parked along the street, they're usually burning the wires above the RV, and we have to look out to control the traffic and be aware that these power lines are often going to fall down to where we are in an area where we're going to have a lot of water. So that electricity can spread through that groundwater as well.
I think we can include food trucks with RVs. And I'm thinking about Clark on that horrible day that you had that mass shooting. I recall you telling me that you had to go around and shut off the gas to all of these food trucks. Does my memory serve me properly there, Clark?
Yes, it is, Cap. We were there the shooting happened on a Sunday. We were deployed on Monday morning, first thing in the morning, because they started having fires. Obviously, all the vendors just ran off the venue on October 1st, and the propane was still on and the grills were still on, and we started having fires. They had artificial turf down. We had fire in the artificial turf. So we had to go to the site and we had to secure all of the power and all of the fuel for all these cooking equipment.
Jeremy, what's your experience on your department with RVs and mobile homes?
Well, the one thing I would say mainly right off the bat is that rolling hazard that Daryl touched on just a little bit. You kind of get that moth to the flame, you start worrying about the fire. And I can't tell you how many videos I've seen of some type of RV or something rolling down either a hill or into a fire truck or something. So that's definitely an area that we really need to address right away, so that, you know, when those airbags burn through or the brake lines or whatever, it's got some type of a chalk or something. And I know that's not, you know, just the easiest thing to do sometimes, but it's definitely a concern that we need to address. As far as just personally, a little over a year ago, we had it came in as a car fire, just like, you know, whoever said it earlier, you can't deal with these like car fires. It came in as a car fire. On our way, they let us know, hey, there's an RV involved. Well, still, that's about all the information we got. And when we got on scene, a single company response was overwhelmed immediately, because we had a full-size pickup hooked to a 33 foot camper, and it was heavily involved. And so, you know, we started out with the hand line and quickly found out that it was not going to touch it, and, you know, pull the 2.5 as quick as we could. We started getting embers flying around like crazy, and this is in the middle of a residential area. And so, you know, concerns of spread from embers and all like that. And so, you know, a structure fire response for us was called by me. But at that point, you know, if we had gotten into a couple or one or two houses light off because of these embers, I mean, we'd have been in bad shape. And so, you know, it's definitely like you said, you cannot just address it like a car fire. It's a big deal. And it was a Dodge. And so we had a lot of magnesium burning as well. And it was just, it was a mess, I would say, in the least.
And Jeremy, go ahead, boss.
Well, with Oklahoma and many other Midwestern states, we've got a lot of folks that live in manufactured housing, which has come a long way. The manufactured housing industry is radically different than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, but there's still a lot of that legacy. And we also have a lot of what people would call the classic mobile home trailer parks. So my volunteer company deals with, we've got 8 or 10 trailer parks in our first due. And there's housing in there that runs the gamut from 40 years old, 45 years old to, you know, 2019. And so, and they all have different kind of oddities about them and things you need to be aware of in terms of shutoffs, in terms of built-in fire protection. And then what we're seeing in not so much in the community I'm in, but in some of our neighboring communities with our emergency management folks, is exactly the kind of growth of this mobile home, or RV rather, being converted into a mobile home, if you will. In other words, an RV that 10 years ago or 5 years ago served as a family recreational vehicle now has been either bequeathed to someone else or purchased or passed along or refurbished as a permanent housing opportunity for someone who is who's destitute. And God bless them, they weren't designed for that, unfortunately. Generally, there's no egress other than an emergency window egress, which means that the occupants, should the fire or it preclude them from, you know, that front exit, that door, they're trapped in the older ones in particular. And many of them, for security reasons, have disabled those windows just to protect their stuff, right? So we've seen some interesting stuff here in Oklahoma, and it's not to denigrate anyone. Poverty is devastating, and people are trying to survive. And when you think about the climatic issues that terrify those that have to live on the streets, in other words, we just went through a spat where we had 10 days where we didn't get above freezing, and we had several days where we were well below zero. And if you're outside in a tent or a temporary structure you've built by a river or an encampment, you're not going to survive. And so these repurposed RVs we're starting to see more of them. And I think it's something that the fire service needs to be very aware of and work proactively with our, you know, social services and our law enforcement to try, as Daryl said, to keep the area clear, to make sure that we have adequate water supply, that we don't have to worry about, as Daryl said, probably one of those caught fire first, which caught the second one fire, you know, so we don't have conflagrations in these areas where these formerly mobile RVs are now basically static. They're not going anywhere. They don't have the fuel. They're not operable. They're surrounded by debris, and so they're not operable. And so it's a fascinating new realm of problems. And propane has its own inherent set of risks, and it is the fuel of choice that we're seeing. And we all, we can go back to all the way to the great propane rail car, or the Kansas City incident, or you don't have to go far back in history to see propane issues. So we're aware of all of that. Our number one problem that we have here, and it was unfortunately for Oklahoma in the last month, we lost a captain, or a chief rather, and a firefighter in a mobile home, and we lost a family of 6. And it's really, really tough. And how we address this, we have we have smoke alarm programs that we are bringing out there, and we're very grateful for these 10-year ones that have, they're sealed so that people don't take the batteries out. We've been very aggressive with that in many communities. We're trying to speak to the people that set up within a municipality or near a community in one of these formerly mobile units about the problems of living in it permanently, and getting refuse collection as best we can so that we don't have problems with that. In terms of other issues besides just fires and explosions, you got health related concerns. So, and then as Daryl pointed out, oftentimes folks that get stuck in these dilemmas tend to hoard what they have in the hopes of being able to barter it or trade it. And it's just a self-perpetuating activity that ends up with great amounts of debris in and about and inside these containers. So, it's a wickedly complex issue in our community. And my heart breaks when I see the communities popping up. DC right now is starting to see a lot of it. The District of Columbia is starting to see a great deal of encampments. And Austin, Texas, I was visiting with the troops from Austin recently. Austin has a huge issue with it now. And so it's not confined to Vegas or California or any place else. It's a growing issue, and I don't see it abating anytime soon. I see it becoming something that we need to start developing some SOPs, some best practice, sharing lessons learned. And I know that the folks from Wanaka are working on, how to present what they learned as best possible, with help from Chief Walker out of OKC and others that are lending them support right now. So we'll know a lot more in the future, but I hope this conversation today spurs some of you who may be out there listening on Facebook or fireengineering.com or wherever you are to take a look at what you're doing and maybe share some best practice and keep this conversation going. Let's build this conversation, because we need to figure out how to do the best we can for these people and protect ourselves. Because besides the propane, you got struts in these things. You got pneumatic struts that are in these things that open the doors and the hinges and the cabinets on the side. So there's just a plethora of things to consider. And then, alternative stuff that we've been looking at here in Oklahoma and we've been testing with are piercing nozzles to try to, pierce through the side to try to put extinguishing agent inside. We've been looking at that, much like you would do on a standard mobile home. You're taking a piercing nozzle off a pre-connect, usually 1 3/4, and sometimes even off a booster reel, because they have low flow. Most of the ones we've been working with were like 95 gallons. So, and that's one of the techniques we're looking at, rather than opening it up and then the fire just exacerbates, just trying to keep it closed and shut it from the outside. So that's some of the stuff we're doing.
Captain Mike, I recall watching a video of the FDNY, and they were having a time with a double wide construction trailer at a construction site. And it would have been a challenge for any fire department. But these types of fires and that type of thing. So I know that, we kidded that you didn't have any mobile homes, but you have plenty of mobile homes in those types of manufactured housing in New York City, correct?
Correct. and they're coming more and more around. We are getting, just like Oakland and just like Vegas, we have the food trucks. We're also getting the RVs parked on the street. People can't afford the rents in some of these places. And I was a couple of years ago up in Williston, North Dakota, which was a boom town due to hydraulic fracking. And there weren't enough rooms in the hotels. I mean, there were guys hot sheeting. So any old RV was worth a ton more than what it was, because they were just putting it in the middle of the woods and working on it. So yes, and very honestly, I have only been in my career 3 times to fires in mobile home type of constructions, trailers or RVs. And my joke is I consider them occupied flashover simulators. Okay. And that's kind of what they are. And it's true. It's true. So there are a couple of things with that. It's all over. It's in rural America. It's in big cities. It's everywhere. The other thing that I saw one time when we did it was the guy was stealing electricity. He wasn't using propane, but we didn't realize he had run a wire off the street lamp and run the electric. And we're going in there thinking there's no electricity in here. We got lit up, okay, because it was illegally hooked up there. Okay, so there are so many things that you have to have in place for this. One of the things that we now require in the city of New York is on construction sites where they have the trailers, okay, where they have the trailers is they have not the trailers, the construction site shanties. They have the shanties, which are the same type of thing. They now have to have a horizontally mounted fire extinguisher with a sprinkler head on it, which I think is really brilliant. So any of these construction trailers have to have this. If in your local community, in Oklahoma, wherever, you can start getting these out there where they can hang these in that facility to stop that, it is an amazing thing. Go ahead, Bobby.
Mike, can you maybe work with Peter and find somebody who could get us some information on that? Because I've never seen that. I've never seen that.
Okay, I will work with Peter and get you some information on it. We require it in our construction sites.
Are those UL approved by any chance, or do you know?
Yes, they are. They're fire extinguishers with a sprinkler head.
Wow.
I will see what I can do for it. Hang on one second. I'm going to just go get something. I think I have a picture of one.
Okay. While Mike's doing that, I've got some pictures. Peter, let's show some of those pictures that I submitted to you.
And while Peter's pulling those up, I just wanted to touch on the power Mike brought up is rampant in our area. You'll drive down certain streets where you're driving over extension cords because they are often bringing power in from the street lamps to the point where the city had to shut off the power to some of the street lamps or then run the wires up high in the street lamps. In addition to the power that you could be getting from, and some hijacked power, some are creative enough and savvy enough, skilled enough, I guess, to put solar panels on their RVs, even on their tents. So don't assume that there is no power to any of these RVs.
All right, Peter, we're going to run through this first group, and then Mike has that information that he wants to share with us. In my jurisdiction, it's never just a trailer. It's a 1940s vintage Airstream that has 2 poorly built wood frame shacks on either side. And next slide, Peter. Okay, this is typical. A good plug for Key Hose at this time. Key Hose combat ready, and their combat sniper is has fairly good excellent kink resistance and fairly good heat resistance. You're not going to find a totally fireproof hose. And this type of situation with the molten aluminum and hot metal surfaces is notorious for melting through charged hose lines. You also see there's a wire down there. And as you can see, the fire has already communicated to the wood frame shack next door. Next picture. All right, typical where will that fire be and how big will it be by the time you get there? Very few trailer parks, none in my jurisdiction, have hydrants in the trailer parks, and we do whatever we can to stay out on the perimeter street. Once you bring an apparatus in there, you get jammed in, and remember, at night, you've got every lawn service, every tow truck, every roofing repair company truck, all these trucks in there, ice cream wagons, all blocking what was a narrow road to begin with. And as you can see, that's just one of many wires down. Next. Okay, again, this is just, there's somewhere inside of that wood frame shack was a trailer. It's still a trailer, but it's just been boxed in with a wood frame shack and a ramshackle fence. And the exposure problems are incredible. Next. Okay, let's let Captain Mike, talk to us about the extinguishers. Go ahead, Mike. You're muted.
We're lip reading, Mike.
Yep. I couldn't find the picture. I'll have to look for it. I know I have it somewhere. I thought I had it in a book here, but it's a horizontal fire extinguisher with a sprinkler head on the end of it. And it's just, when it pops, the sprinkler discharges, and it's a dry chem. It's an ABC extinguisher. It's a brilliant, yeah, it's a great idea. It's a great idea. I'll find a picture and send it to you, and I'll send it to Pete, and we can talk about it. But it's a great idea for some of these places. And I mean, very honestly, I think it's brilliant for even homeowners to do over their oil burner, which is the main cause of fires in homes. Yep.
Peter, you want to show that next? We'll run through the next few pictures here.
They have a tank and they deliver diesel oil to the homes, and it goes into this furnace. So in the basement.
Okay, you better know before you go.
Tanks.
You do not let the cops or the civilians do your size up for you, because if you drive in there, you don't know if that van is going to move. And are you driving into down wires? And never blindly drive an apparatus into a trailer park, because you'll turn that corner and you will be jammed in there. Next.
All residential homes have these.
All right. I love this picture because it exudes discipline and leadership. This is Jose Nochea, good friend of mine. He was working overtime on engine 30. There's engine 30 out on the perimeter street. He had about 15 civilians doing his size up for him, and they were quite angry that he wasn't driving the apparatus and heeding their instructions. He walked in, you can see the determination on his face, and I kid you not, rocks, bottles, soda cans, and a lady came up and hit him over the head with her purse. She was so angry that he was not taking immediate action. Well, he was going to figure out what he has and what he's going to do about it. Well, we're going to see what he did about it. Next. All right. Now, again, it's never just going to be a wood frame or a trailer. It's always going to be the wood frame shacks. And this is another thing you're going to see. This is a cultural thing. These folks are very reluctant to call the fire department. So they will exhaust every means possible to try to put the fire out themselves. And this is why these things get going so good during the day. Look at the drawers on that guy. It looks like those, looks like a cow pattern, but they're very stylish. I think Clark has a pair of those. Next. All right, this is what he did. We did a flying stretch, straight right off the static bed, 3-inch hose with a Y. Next. And then we'll take hose packs and put them on either side of this. And that's how we dealt with it. Now, by avoiding going into the trailer park, we avoid the wires. We avoid the exploding LP tanks. We avoid the radiant heat from the fire damaging our apparatus. Next up, we go to the next group. Oh, I think we missed one there, but that's okay. That's all right.
All right, Bill, can I have the screen for 1 second?
Yeah, you got something? Go ahead, Ray. Go ahead.
Just give me 1 second. Okay, there you go.
Hey, there you go. I like it.
That's what the fire extinguisher looks like. It's mounted in the shanties, and it's a sprinkler head fire extinguisher. And that's what it looks like. And New York City requires that in all of their construction in the shanties on all of because we've had so many construction site fires. Okay, it's an ABC mounted sprinkler head extinguisher. Okay, and
that is yeah, that's great. And it's great you came up with it so quickly. Before we go back to the pictures, anybody, Daryl, any comments?
No, I mean, it's just one of the challenges we have is that these RVs occupied by, generally homeless are not inspected like homes. And we don't have smoke detectors for early detection. We don't have fire extinguishing systems. This is brilliant. I've never seen anything like that. It would be great if there was a way to start getting smoke detectors and even some type of extinguishing system into some of these places. Another one of the challenges we have are obviously we have a lot of people suffering from some mental illness or drug abuse, and sometimes it's hard to get the cooperation from those individuals that you're trying to help out, and being so tied to the belongings they have in their trailer, you always have to be mindful of, because although it may look like junk to us, it is their belongings. We do treat it like a house fire. Once we have a fire in one of these places, we call Red Cross. We get their information, and they could be put up for a couple nights, which has also had its own challenges. It's filling up a lot of hotels, especially during COVID, is very challenging to get them a place to stay. And there was even speculation about arson fires to get a place to stay because they were happening so frequently. But yeah, treat it like a house fire. And the other thing I would say is when you're on a medical call, if the person's receptive, try and point out some of the hazards that you see and some of the things they can do. If they're able to get a smoke detector or clear out some debris or remove the propane cylinders, from inside the building, we can use, because we're not inspecting them. This is the closest thing we're going to have to an inspection is going there on some other official business.
Jeremy, do you have mobile home parks in your jurisdiction that require long hand stretches of line because you can't reach them with a pre-connect, you can't reach them with an apparatus? You're talking like several hundred feet of 3-inch or 2.5.
No, we don't personally. We do have mobile home parks, but the configuration of the drive is almost like a giant kind of an O, and everything is right off of that drive. But I mean, there's always the chance that, like you guys are talking about. I mean, this is, I think it's interesting. This kind of start out as RVs, but we've talked about mobile homes. We've talked about construction buildings. I would even go into storage containers. I mean, there is a lot of people doing a lot of different things with storage containers right now. And yeah, maybe it's a lot different than what we're talking about, but there's still some of the same challenges. You never know what you're going to be addressing.
Well, every month, Jeremy, we get on here and we solve all of the world's problems. By the end of today, we're probably going to run. Can we run over a little bit, boss?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. By the end of the day, all is well with the world until somebody screws it up. But we leave it better than we found it when we first get on at 1 o'clock Eastern time.
To Jeremy's point, though, we do have storage container facilities where people are living in currently. And again, it's not because they want to be there, it's because they don't want to be outside.
And don't you also have in Tulsa, wasn't that whole food park built out of storage containers down?
Well, we actually have it's called Container City here, right?
No,
Box City. And it's just down the road. It's literally 2 blocks from where we're sitting. And it's an entire downtown section that's been built out of former storage containers, what this group would refer to as flashover simulator. So I think I call it Boxtown or something like that. It's got a catchy name.
I remember seeing it with you, Bobby.
But again, remember that that's a little bit different because mostly it's commercial. I don't think anybody's living in any of them. It's all commercial. I'd say it's all commercial. It was, engineered correctly. It was put together correctly. It's more of a, it was more of a, I don't want to say gimmick, but it was more of a concept to try to be environmentally conscious and repurpose and do something out of the, not out of the box, but in the box actually. So there's a crappy pun for you. Oh boy, wish I could take that one back. But yeah, we do have that, and we should probably go one of the Tulsa guys on one of these days because it's interesting, the pre-fire planning that they've done for that, which is fascinating, just fascinating. But yeah,
I think your point really drives home that searches have to be done on any fire because when you said that, we've had calls where people are living in the storage facility next to my firehouse. We even had somebody living at the subway station. There's these plastic boxes you could keep your bicycle in, during your trip. They were living in that. We had an abandoned bed of a truck that was used that, when somebody tries to sell meat, it's like a refrigeration thing on the back of a pickup truck. And it looked like it was just on a pile of garbage, and somebody was living in it. So we have to have a primary search, and then we have to have a thorough secondary search, digging through all the debris. Our last fatal fire in a homeless encampment, it's a tremendous pile of debris, and it was found, the deceased was found pretty late into the operation just because the amount of debris being sifted through. So, make sure that you cover your primary and secondary search.
All right, Peter, let's finish up these pictures because I think it's going to underscore a lot of what we've been talking about. Now, that's a trailer. Let's go to the next picture.
Size of BPS challenges that are
okay.
It's crazy.
That's a trailer. That's a trailer. Okay, next. Living the American Dream. That's the trailer on the inside. Next. All right. And we have whole mobile home communities like this. Now, these folks they're masters at making do with what they have. You got to really give them credit. Okay, next there, Peter. We can go to the next group. It's never going to be just a trailer. Okay, there is the venerable LP tank that you're going to, and the other reason you're not going to see these tanks outside, somebody will steal it. So next, it is a very common custom in South America, Central America, and the Caribbean to cook with a 20-pound LP cylinder or a 100-pound cylinder right next to your stove. So you're going to have them right in the mobile home. Next.
That's coming.
Okay, now this is a little bit of creativity here. Again, they're going to do what they have to do to survive. And I don't know if you can see, but they bridged the terminals on that meter and are borrowing electricity from the power company. They'll pay it back later, but they're borrowing it. Next. Okay, and then this is in full compliance with, I better not say it, I'll get myself in trouble. It's so easy to offend people these days, so I'll leave that. Let's go to the next group, Peter.
Thank you.
There you go. See, hey, after all of these years. Now, this is what I'm talking about, is that do you have a hose load? And this is not the ideal situation. We flat load our hose. Now, each guy can take, or girl, can take 100 feet, but man, you've got 25-foot loops dragging behind you, and you pass by a vehicle, and it's going to catch. Next. This is a split lay. also called a rural hitch, where they'll drop a clappered Siamese at the entrance of the trailer park and drive in there if that's what the size up indicates that you need to do. Next.
Bill, I think we're at the end there. I think that's
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. All right. Very good. Let's see what else we need to catch up. Let's talk a little bit about calves while I've got Jeremy on the horn here. It seems like the departments in Oklahoma seem to be very progressive when it comes to this. And I'm asking this for selfish reasons. I do a little bit of consulting work at islands that are either in the Bahamas or in Florida. So, Jeremy, do you have any firsthand or secondhand knowledge using compressed air foam systems?
I do not. I would love to come on here and spout all kinds of knowledge about that, but we at my department do not have any equipment that uses calves at all. So very, very limited knowledge.
Okay.
Well, Bill, as you know, you've been at my department, Limestone.
Yes.
All of our units are Darley, and they're all calves. And compressed air foam is used on every fire that the Limestone Fire Department goes to, literally.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, and the more that we get into, I think, who did we have? We had Ron Canterman, who basically said that every fire we're going to now is basically a Class B fire. It's really not a Class A fire. It's a Class B fire because it's petrochemical-based material, and it melts, and then you got a combustible liquid fire. So let's see if we can cover it. We still have some time.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to give another shout out to our buddies at Key Hose. That's keyhose.com. There's a lot of attributes that you want to look at for hose, and I would go cheap on other things other than hose. It is your lifeline, and I also want to just suggest that no matter what brand of hose you are, be really careful about how far you stretch towards the fire in the fire building with it uncharged. I know it takes less people, but we've had so many situations where the fire has gotten away from us and the line was not charged. And Mike, I can see you shaking your head. No, in the affirmative. What is your guideline on the FDNY? How deep can you get into a building with an uncharged line?
It depends, Bill. It's up to the officer's discretion. But I was just reading something the other day about some great companies in Brooklyn many years ago that got trapped when the fire burnt through the apartment door, and when it burnt through, it changed the wind direction and the apartment door closed on the hose line and they were getting burnt. And thank God the dispatchers sent extra companies because they got so many phone calls, and the company pulled up and they saw fingers under the door trying to get the door open because it was so hot. And they forced the door and they all came out. The 7 people who were inside all came running out, and they were all saved. They did get a little burnt up, but they were okay. But it's up to the officer's discretion. But very honestly, my deal is, if you don't know, charge the hose line. If you know where the fire is, you got control of a door, you've got control of a stop, you've got control of someplace, you can bring it to that area before you charge it. But do not go into a fire area or an unknown area without a charged hose line.
Yeah, go ahead, Bobby.
Could I raise one other issue that, and we hate to, Oklahoma dominate it, but being a very popular tourist destination, our state is, and we're an outdoor state. We don't have, we're not a metropolitan tourist destination. We're a recreational. We have seen the last year in particular a tremendous growth in gentrified folks from the cities and the coasts coming to Oklahoma in their brand new RVs and trailers, and so our parks and our state parks and such have been just like full to capacity, many of them, just all round season, from folks that are great people, wonderful people. People are rediscovering the joys of going out on road trips and going back into nature and having an RV or a trailer or and be able to park and hike and fish and be outside. And so, one of the things to think about too, I think when we're talking about this is, be aware of where your recreational sites are, like especially for, states like, North Dakota, Arizona, New Mexico, where firefighters in our regions, we've got state parks and federal parks, and people come with their trailers and they stay. And generally we don't have a lot of issues there, but because we're seeing so much usage, inexperienced folks can do things that, they just don't know how dangerous it is that what they're doing, right? Because they're inexperienced. But and whereas and I'm not denigrating it, but if you've grown up with less resource, a lot more about propane and propane cylinders than someone from, say, who grew up in, say, Kansas City, or who grew up in like New York City, or who grew up in a more gentrified area, who now has purchased a travel trailer or a RV because they want to be able to have vacation. And so now they're traveling the country, in this unit that they're not going to understand, about air management inside of it. So you've got, CO issues, you've got, even just the things they think about doing inside. You've got the vaping people, and you've got the recreational people, and from in various states, there's all kinds of substances that are legal and not legal, and they use different kinds of devices for aerosolizing those products. So we're kind of seeing some of that stuff on. We got a comment from Facebook from Jerry Hughes, and he said, putting surfactants in your water will accelerate the time it takes to penetrate the highly flammable fuels found in mobile homes. Using surfactants in your water encapsulates carcinogen smokes, which reduces firefighter causing carcinogens. And that's from Jerry Hughes out of Battalion 20 in Chicago. Thank you, Jerry. That's some interesting stuff. So he's talking about the surfactants in your water penetrating highly combustible fuels found in mobile homes. That's some great stuff. Thank you, Jerry.
And it doesn't have to be an exotic foam. Dishwashing detergent make a big difference. Clark, I want you to weigh in.
I know that you
have
real quick. I don't have a lot of experience in trailer fires, but we do have a poor section of town. We have quite a few trailer parks, and I've worked several shifts in that area. One thing I have learned is, before you make entry into these trailers, you have to sound the floor. We have very few basements in Las Vegas, so we typically don't sound floors, as opposed to other places. I understand if you're in a community that has a lot of basements, you have to sound the floor when you go in. Vegas, we don't, so we don't keep the practice of sounding floors. But when you enter one of these trailers, you have to sound the floors multiple times. I have seen people fall through floors, put a leg through a floor. I've seen some pretty horrific leg injuries when you do go through the floor, catch your leg on a bolt or something holding the undercarriage together, the frame together. So that could be very, very dangerous to get trapped. Another strategy that we have seen, and it's just the opposite of what Chief Halton was saying, it's very, very easy to open these trailers up. Typically, they're a little higher, right? They're like 36 inches off the ground. So any kind of a window rescue is it's very, very difficult to get in the window because they're so high up. We made practice of using just a chainsaw with a rescue chain on it. You can easily rip this building apart. And we had a fire. I was on a fire once. We had a confirmation there was someone trapped. He was in the master bedroom. Master bedroom's all the way on the Charlie side. We had heavy involvement on the front of the trailer. We went to the Charlie side with the chainsaw, and we simply ripped through. We turned that window into a door, just folded it down, and we were looking right at the top of his head in his master bed. And we reached in and grabbed him by the neck, and we just pulled him straight out of the back of the trailer. We made that hole. Seconds. It took us seconds to get through that trailer with that chainsaw.
2 points, Clark. One is the windows in mobile homes tend to be very small. They're like bathroom windows. Second, when they build that wood frame shack on, say, a single wide that has a front door and a back door, it's not going to have a back door anymore. There's only going to be one way in and one way out. We had a whole family trapped like that with a car fire burning impinging on their trailer. They couldn't get out until we got the car fire under control. So it's, we could really go on to another whole session with this. Captain Mike, you got something for us?
Yeah, I just want to expand on what Clark said, because a couple of guys that I have talked with these things, when they do have these mobile home fires, and he talked about falling through the floors. I have had a couple of guys, I know one in particular, who fell through the floor. The fire started underneath and burnt up, and the floor was rotted. He went in there and he fell through, but now he's in his bunkers and they got pulled up, and he's on fire around his legs and around his family jewels. And it's not a fun place to be. Let me tell you something. And he was telling me about this, how he was trying to get out of that hole with the fire, and things were getting a little warm. So it's another point of it. And one of the things that I always talk about people who are in the communities is, if you are going into one of these, the skirting around the outside of that trailer, rip a piece of it off and look underneath to make sure there's no fire burning underneath you, or it even hasn't burnt down through the floor, that now know the floor is weakened.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Yeah. And we have electrical shorts. It's a combination of errant electricity, a bad neutral, and a bad ground. And where does the fire start? It's arcing between the straps that hold the mobile home to its chassis. That's very common to have a fire that starts underneath. Clark, our old trailers have particle board floors, and you are spot on, brother. Both you and Mike. You got to check that. You got to check that floor. Daryl, anything else before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I have a couple things. One is that very reason, putting your leg through the floor of a modular home is the reason the Oakland Fire Department went to turnout pants. Up in, I think we went to them my second year in or something. It retired a guy when his leg went through the floor and burned his leg. In regard to RVs, couple safety things is, one is we're generally not entering these until we're kind of searching around on a secondary search or overhauling it. The Halligan hook is a preferred tool to kind of just rip down the sides of the sheet metal, and that's generally what we're doing, is just kind of opening it up and getting water in there. But when you're overhauling these, be very careful. Like I said, a lot of people have some drug issues. We had a member get a needle poked in his hand when he grabbed a garbage bag to overhaul. So now don't use your hands. Use a tool to move this stuff, because there was needles in there. And there's also they're not at an RV park where there's a place that have your sewage going down the drain. So they're filling up a lot of 5-gallon buckets. So you don't know what you're grabbing onto. Don't just start grabbing stuff and throwing it out. Be very careful with and diligent what you're touching and moving during this secondary search. The other thing is, as Chief Halton was talking about, with all these different RV parks, and some of them are quite nice. My parents travel around in a nice diesel RV, and some of these places are great. But don't trust the water supply unless you've tested it, because they're not always a municipal water supply. Sometimes there are just private hydrants, and some could be very good and some could be very bad. But out of the recliner out there and flow water and see what those hydrants are giving you, because we don't always have to be out on the street stretching into this park. Sometimes we can use that water supply, but we have to know what it's going to give us. And the only way we're going to do that is, by flowing water and seeing what we have.
All right. Clark, any closing comments, sir?
Not really. Just it was a pleasure being here. And again, I learned more than I taught today, which makes it a good day for me. So I appreciate being invited, and appreciate meeting you, Jeremy. Good luck. And if I'm in Oklahoma, I'll look you up. If you're ever in Las Vegas, look me up. When you're in Vegas, you're in my town, I buy the drinks, all right?
And a couple shout outs again to Jeff Cole for taking the time to weigh in on the single inlet monitor. And also I met we had somebody weigh in from Chicago. I met a fella this last week, Larry McCormick, Squad 5 guy. And as usual, they're cut out of the same mold. And remember that my dad was True Blue Squad 2 until he got promoted and went to Engine 77. So, Jeremy.
Larry is also a former Courage and Valor winner, and it was Jerry Hughes out of Battalion 20 in Chicago, and noted battalion. I think that was DeGrace's battalion as well, prior to his retirement.
Mm-hmm.
And Bill, I want to weigh in on what we started this whole discussion with I think you said it was Jeff Cole's comments on the dual inlet versus single inlet master streams.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's an assumption or if it's something we actually talked about, because in our department, when we went to a single inlet master stream, it doesn't mean that it's this or that. You could have both. I don't think the debate has to be surrounded on, are we using this one and getting rid of the other option? That depends entirely on what you feel you could accomplish with either tool. There's rarely any tool that's like perfectly designed. I would argue maybe a smoothbore nozzle and a Halligan bar are pretty close to perfect, but yeah, when it comes to these, yeah, you're going to be sacrificing some flow volume to gain in maneuverability and speed of deployment. So for us, we still have the bases available for some of those other rare situations, but for the most part, it's exchanging. So I wouldn't write off going to the other style monitor because you don't want to have the dual inlet. You can have both. I don't want too many tools in the toolbox, but it is just another tool.
Yep, it is, and you're right. Except for maybe a Halligan and a solid tip nozzle, there's very few perfect tools in this world. There's Swiss Army knives. Well, Jeremy, thank you very much for participating, my brother. You have you probably wish you had some of our experience. Is that right?
I'm just happy to be sitting in the same Zoom meeting as you guys. So yeah.
Well, let me tell you something. I wish I had your youth, brother. I wish I had your youth. Because if I did, I would have legions of adoring young females following me like a Louisiana Calacula hound.
Stop talking.
But yeah, so you got a great career already, and you've got a great career looking forward, brother. And I hope you come back and see us again. And you were our guest of honor today. So until next month, Captain Mike, you and I will get together and we'll put our heads together and come up with another topic. But thanks, everybody. Chief Halton, Jeremy, our special guest, Clark, Brother Clark, Mike Dugan, Daryl Liggins in the doghouse. This is Bill Gustin from Miami-Dade, wishing that God bless everybody that's watching, and may he keep you safe in our most noble of professions.